This police officer with a bouquet on his hand was going home for his beautiful wife. When he returned, he felt something wrong when the door was open. His wife was on the floor. Someone attacked him from behind. As an experienced officer, GIBM could fight back, yet he was knocked down by another man who appeared out of nowhere. They turned him into a blind man for good. The wedding anniversary was suddenly turned into the saddest day in his life. 2 months ago, when colleagues was going to take a witness to the court, everything went smoothly until a group of attackers broke into the house. They knocked out all the officers there with weapons. GIBM felt something wrong, so he jumped over the gate. Just as he predicted, the assassins were waiting to ambush him. They disappeared and appeared suddenly. They jumped off the roof with their weapons. After being suddenly attacked, GIBM gradually regained his composure. Being trained in the army, he could easily knock them off, but it was too late. The important witness and his team were brought to the ringleader. The ringleader didn't spare the officer. He ruthlessly got rid of everyone there, including his myrmidons. The 2 myrmidons left, threw all the bodies into the lake. GIBM's mission failed. The entire team did not survive. The chairman was declared innocent due to a lack of evidence to prove his illegal activities. He was Yongdiok, the leader of Argos, an organization that expanded through illegal activities. After attending the ceremony of his teammates, he was out for Yongdiok blood. Without saying much, he just gave Yongdiok a blow. Luckily for him, his myrmidons kept GIBM away from him. GIBM was on the news as an officer who was violent with a citizen, and he was punished by the disciplinary council. Though they knew he didn't do something wrong, they still bit his head off, as they was bribed the Yongdiok in advance. As she punched the chairman, he and his wife were the targets of Argos. Surviving from the attack, he was accused of eliminating his own wife and destroying his own eyes. An exemplary like him was turned into a hideous culprit that damaged the police's reputation. On the first day in jail, GIBM could communicate with the director through the earbuds. Every single move of him was monitored. The director would help GIBM revenge as long as he did what he said. First of all, he learned to feel everything around without his eyes. After 6 months of intensive physical training, he was gradually able to get used to operating in the dark. As promised, the director helped him get outpatient treatment. A man disguised as a doctor and tried to assassinate GIBM, yet GIBM could easily defeat the assassin. GIBM asked the officer to take him to the toilet. Taking the chance, he escaped thanks to the guidance of the director. Despite his blindness, he succeeded in escaping. After a long time of training, the real danger came. He was attacked by men in face masks. They got rid of the staff and hit GIBM with a car. Fortunately, the director's force came in time to save him. They took him to headquarters for treatment. When he woke up, the director claimed that he became a target of Argos. That was why he put GIBM in jail, to keep him alive. GIBM accepted to be a test piece for the artificial eyes, which turned him into a human weapon. GIBM had undergone a life-threatening surgery. He woke up with a pair of artificial eyes. Strolling along the hallway, he encountered Mina, who was thought to lose her life during the mission. He was very surprised when she was still alive. Same as him, she was saved by the director for only one goal. Duk-gu heard about the disappearance of GIBM. However, Dalho claimed that GIBM had died. After that, they attended a party to congratulate on Chairman Yongdiok, who went into politics. Ko didn't buy into his right-hand man, Duk-gu. He aimed at making Argos stronger. Whether good or bad, dirty or pure, was up to him. Guncheol didn't agree to let GIBM catch those who harmed his wife. Since he had agreed to join Rugal, he wasn't allowed to act alone. He had to adapt to the artificial eyes first. At the same time, he must practice properly with other members of the team. To be recognized by the director, he must pass the test by Taewon. However, he must pass the first round by defeating Mina first, and they fought on the mat. She really gave him a blow. With his martial arts background, he didn't let her know him down. He became agitated when she whipped out a knife. His obsessions caused his failure. The second test was his ability to sustain blows. Guangcheol hung GIBM upside down and kept punching him. GIBM gritted his teeth and put up with it. The training session only ended when he lay exhausted on the floor. He then was taken to the recovery room. It was the first time he saw the team leader. Taewon's tattoo surprised GIBM. That was the icon of Argos. It was time for the fight with Taewon. In the beginning of the fight, one of his eyes was in trouble. GIBM was still determined to fight to the end for a chance of revenge. The artificial eyes allowed him to foresee his captain's moves as well as his iron arm. However, with his overwhelming strength, Taewon knocked GIBM senseless with a punch. Their first mission was to break into Yongdiok wedding and stole the car carrying money. The main purpose was to make them internally doubt each other, which might give them a chance to collect more evidences. According to the plan, GIBM was in charge of scanning all guests in the lobby. Meanwhile, Mina and Taewon would get through the elevator for VIP. Guangcheol would disturb the wedding and turn off all the cameras. With the power of an iron hand, Tae-woong easily broke into the basement even though the elevator was broken. Only 2 of them fought against a group of gangsters, and took all of them down in a moment. It was time for Gibm. He was in charge of misleading the gangsters to buy time for Tae-woong to steal the car. During the mission, Gibm saw the one who took his wife's life, so he followed after him on a motorcycle. Stopping the car, he beat the driver up. Each punch was filled with resentment. If the captain hadn't stopped him, Dalho would have lost his life. While Yongdeok was in the assembly hall, Yongdeok ordered his men to get rid of Dukgu. Dukgu was strong enough to knock out 8 men. Dukgu entered the hall confidently, which amazed Ko, hearing that the car carrying money was stolen. Yongdeok drove his car to run after the stealer without knowing that Dukgu cut the brake. Moreover, his men disguised as police officers and blockaded the entire highway to set up a fake car accident. After that, they carried Yongdeok to the lake. Dukgu also took Yongdeok bride there. She was so shocked when her husband was dying. He forced Yiwon to end Yongdeok's life by herself to monopolize Yongdeok assets. During the funeral, high-ranking officials came to bid a farewell. After the ceremony was the shareholder meeting of Argo's organization. As the wife of the former chairman, Yiwon took his position despite the disagreement of the other members. She used her power to give Dukgu the position of a vice chairman. The organization's assets was divided based on shareholders' contributions. Gibm was placed in solitary confinement. His artificial eyes were also disabled. This was the punishment for those who break the law. Being all in a tumble, he couldn't stand it when the culprit was free. That was why he ruined the plan. What he suffered was indescribable. He helplessly screamed in despair when he couldn't personally revenge for his wife. He couldn't do anything when being blind. Every time waking up, he imagined his wife. She blamed him for not protecting her. Sometimes, she encouraged him. After being locked up for a long time, he finally regained his composure. It was time for more practices. The first exercise was to hold his breath in water. With great determination, he accomplished and broke the human breath-holding record. The second lesson was the training of endurance. He was better at sustaining Guangqiu's blows. Not only does his endurance increase, but he could also avoid the strikes when being hung upside down. Thanks to his flexible body, he easily untied himself and fought back. The final and most difficult challenge was the fight against Tae-woong. Along with practicing, he also learned about each member's strengths and weaknesses. Part of Mina's brain was damaged by the gunshot, so she was implanted with a chip to maintain life. If she was not careful, she would have a reflux of blood and paralyze her body. Guangqiu was severely burnt. His organs were damaged, so they performed a transplant of artificial organs on him. Without a battery on his chest, he would lose his life. About Tae-woong, he suffered from pain all the time when his iron arm was fixed. That was the price to pay for possessing great power. On the date of duel, they both were confident. Though Tae-woong overwhelmed Gibm in the first minutes, Gibm still controlled the situation. Each thump was anti-personnel. Gibm could catch up with Tae-woong with his flexibility and good endurance. Right before the decisive moment, the alarm rang. Someone confessed to the police that he ended the life of Gibm's wife. The thing was that he was also implanted with artificial weapons. After being imprisoned, he bombed the police station to lure Rugal out. Just as he planned, Gibm came and caught him. After confirming that Gibm was alive, he activated the bomb in his head to self-destruct. The only thing left is the chip implanted in the brain. Gibm took his body to the hospital for a surgery. According to experts, this chip was activated by remote control. However, he was just a defective product. Gibm thought it was related to the missing of Yongdeok and the other medical staff. Their purpose was to implant artificial weapons onto the human bodies, so as to increase the power of Argos. The number of missing people was increasing, including national athletes, who had more special physiques than normal people. Yet, the mission was paused until new directives. They needed to wage an internal war of Argos. Therefore, the mission for the whole team was to break into Bong Manchiol's building, a powerful member of Argos's board of directors. The mission was going as planned. Guangqiu and Tae-woong disguised as money transporters, and Mana took photos as evidences to cause an internal division. Gibm stayed outside to support once they needed. He set up a dash cam on top of a building. Yiwon was in danger as Bong Manchiol's men were coming for her. Couldn't turn a blind eye to it. Gibm knocked all of them down to save her. Thanks to his bionic eyes, he could easily win the fight. Before leaving, Yiwon gave him her card visit. Dukgu received the evidences that Manchiol misappropriated the organization's fund. After that, he made a rush at Manchiol, giving him a brutal attack. The dash cam recorded everything. They dug deeper into Dukgu. After just one night, Dukgu as a secretary was promoted to a deputy general. Everyone questioned about that. It was possible that he was the schemer. Knowing who his enemy was, Gibm practiced hard to control his bionic eyes. Everyone was amazed at his rapid progress. And for the next mission, Rugal team had to save the family of a lawyer from the kidnappers. They found the victims' positions in a short time. They succeeded in saving the victims. That was only the tip of the iceberg. The victims who were not rescued became the test pieces of the vice chairman. The success rate was very low. Most of them couldn't withstand the pressure of the chip implanted in their brain. Guangqiul was curious about Taewong's past, especially how he could escape from Argos. The tattoo on his arm was the icon of Argos. Taewong said he saw them took his sister's life, so he escaped to find an opportunity to take revenge. Jiabiam thought they could find the schemer by tracking the chip they just seized. Finding the IP, he decided to find the ringleader alone. However, it was the ringleader's henchman was waiting for him. Spotting Dukgu from afar, he quickly chased after him. And all this was discovered by the director. With direct observation of the bionic eyes, other members of the team could watch the fight. Mina also recognized the voice of the culprit who eliminated her whole team. After verifying the schemer, Jiabiam was like a tiger scented its prey. Despite the power of the bionic eyes, his opponent wasn't easy to get down. The director ordered him to catch Dukgu alive, but Jiabiam didn't obey. He destroyed the communications equipment and began a dead or alive battle with Dukgu. Dukgu was still a close match for Jiabiam. Being in high dudgeon, Jiabiam pointed a gun at Dukgu. However, the director switched off the bionic eyes, which gave Jiabiam a blackout, and so Dukgu left the scene before people of Rugal came, leaving Jiabiam unconscious. Coming back to the headquarters, Jiabiam found his new power. He could talk to the bionic eyes, but the pressure was beyond his limit. The result of the medical examination showed that the indicators of heartbeat, mental power, and muscle dramatically gained. His body data shocked the scientists. In just a short time, his strength grew stronger than anyone else in Rugal. Becoming aware of his own power and responsibility, Jiabiam asked the director not to trust him but to control the beast inside him, or else he would work mischief on them. The whole team built a better relationship after the incident. Jiabiam asked the team out and promised to help their dreams come true. They were entrusted with tasks while exchanging confidences. Mina wanted Jiabiam to take her to a jazz concert. She seemed to enjoy it more than accomplishing the task. With the bionic eyes, he saw Min-jun, the owner of the bar, become a major member of Argos. He also had a good relationship with Yi-won. Min-jun performed money laundering for Argos by opening an entertainment company. The vice chairman ordered a singer to bring a case in his car. Opening the case, she saw forbidden goods. She called the bar owner for his directives. On the way back, Dukgu's men blocked her way to rob the case. Guangqiul showed up as a hero and stopped them. He couldn't fight against them alone and ended up being kidnapped. A group of gangsters were trying to kidnap Min-jun. Even though he had prepared in advance, they could still knock him senseless. When Yi-won arrived, the bar was like a mess. When someone gave her a piece of knot, she went to see Dukgu for. They had found out who Min-jun was really are. He was a plainclothes policeman who was trying to overthrow Argos. That made Yi-won felt betrayed. Without hesitation, she beat him unconscious. Meanwhile, Jiabiam turned on the mode of automatic combat. The bionic system controlled his moves. However, it did not function smoothly, so he was put in danger. The chips in their brains caused a self-destruction. The captain arrived and told Jiabiam that Guangqiul was kidnapped. He wished Jiabiam would leave him alone fighting with the criminals. He struck them down and headed out to save Guangqiul. They followed the traces. Their drone led them to his location. However, they were too late to save the singer's life. That ate Guangqiul's heart out, because he was too weak to save her. As the stored energy of the artificial organ ran out, Guangqiul underwent a surgery. He would die if he was taken there later. The whole team was waiting with a bated breath for the result. In order to revenge for Guangqiul, Jiabiam asked the director more about Min-jun. The director planted his agent, who was Min-jun, in Argos, but they lost in touch from the previous day. He might be in danger. Jiabiam used his bionic eyes to find Min-jun. In the dream, he suddenly couldn't remember everyone's faces. Hundreds of information appeared covering their faces. He wondered if this was a bug or a memory problem. Guangqiul's surgery was successful beyond expectations. He wanted to get back to his team, as he needed to do many things to revenge. During the meeting this morning, the director announced that the situation had changed. Recent cases were more barbaric and public. The area had also been separated. At the same time, members of Argos had many disagreements, especially those who were under the chairman. They couldn't believe that Min-jun was a plainclothes policeman, so they believed that Dukgu counterfeit the evidences to jockey for power. After the meeting, Choi Yong scared Dukgu to leave the house, or he would fire the gun. However, he daren't pull the trigger. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Dukgu captured them for treason. They were taken to the secret lab of Argos, while the director didn't notice. Dukgu implanted 3 chips into his heads. He asked the director to write down a list of lobbyists, otherwise Dukgu would activate the explosive in the chips. He gave Choi Yong 2 choices, die or live as a man of straw for his whole life. Choi Yong was as timid as a rabbit, so that he wrote down the list of lobbyists. To access the information source in Argos, Jiabiam made a plan on approaching without being exposed. He would disguise as a mercenary to approach Yi-won. As soon as he got in the car, she threatened him with a knife. With his ability of acting, he wasn't scared at all. He calmly stripped her of the knife and pushed her back to her seat. In fact, it was just a test of his bravery. No need to be strained at a gnat. He directly asked her what she would do to help him, but the first thing she wanted to know was his background. She could tell that he was a soldier or an athlete. He said he was a mercenary. When Yi-won admitted to be the chairwoman of Argos, he pretended to be surprised, as that was a dangerous position. She needed him to be her bodyguard after he saved her last time. From then on, he could easily get in and out of her home. Mina wasn't happy about that. The captain knew that she had feelings for Jiabiam. However, she denied it when he asked. They helped Jiabiam find the missing people. At the headquarters, Gwang Cheol tried to remember what happened that night to support the bionic eyes in finding the truck in the scrapyard. Tae-woong used his strength to open the car, and they found the bodies of the missing people. Things were getting worse, as this could be the message the Argos left behind. They challenged Rugal to find them. The following morning, an officer saw a young man leaving a parcel there. Opening it up, they saw a head of a man. The experts said it was just a mock-up of a jazzist. He was kidnapped after streaming the turbulence at the bar. The director wanted to make Argos pay for it. The rumor about the jazzist spread throughout the country. It attracted criticism at the police department, forcing them to take action. The Rugal team entered the warehouse where the victims were. They saw many freezers storing the bodies. Checking out the basement, they found the dying jazzist, and the whole team were locked up when they let down their guard. Blowing up the door with artificial spare was the only way to escape. Tae-woong believed that Jiabiam could do it. However, Jiabiam couldn't cut off Tae-woong's arm. To encourage him, Tae-woong said, "If you can't do it, I'll take off your eyes. You need to save us at any cost." Making up his mind, Jiabiam cut off Tae-woong's arm and made a bomb with the help of his bionic eyes. The door was broken after an explosion and the whole team could escape. On the way back, the assassins followed after them. Jiabiam and Mina easily knocked them out. Then they took Tae-woong and the jazzist to the headquarters for a treatment. Jiabiam found the connection between the gallery with Min Jun, who was missing. Entering the gallery, he saw Duk-gu was waiting for him. Jiabiam should have captured the bad guy. Duk-gu kept jesting about the strength of Jiabiam's team. Jiabiam asked Duk-gu why he did so many malicious acts. A dictator like him simply did those to satisfy his instincts. He tortured the victims to consolidate his absolute power. Due to the evils like him, people like police officers and Jiabiam could legalize their violence. To welcome the guest, Duk-gu prepared a gift for Jiabiam, which was Min Jun. Jiabiam Sr. then became a human weapon for the bad guys. More than that, Duk-gu imprisoned the children of high-ranking officials. Jiabiam had to choose between the rich kids or a live Min Jun. After a few moments of hesitation, he decided to defeat Agent Min Jun and rescue the hostages. Duk-gu implanted the chips in Min Jun's brain so he could control Min Jun. Time was running out, so Jiabiam began a combat with him. Confirming that Min Jun completely lost control, Jiabiam made no concessions to Min Jun. He gave Min Jun an electric shock and disabled the chip. The bionic eyes shared the location of the victims with the headquarters, while Jiabiam called Yi-won for getting him out of the exhibition room system. She was very curious about his true identity when he told her that this was Duk-gu's hideaway and why Min Jun was knocked unconscious next to him. However, he didn't tell her everything. Hearing that he could get down Duk-gu's human weapon, she asked him to become her personal bodyguard. His mission was to protect her from Duk-gu's henchmen and intimidate those who oppose her. That was very helpful for his true mission, so he agreed. Before leaving, he attached a bug on Min Jun's pocket. After receiving the location share, Mina and Gwang immediately headed there. In the abandoned warehouse, they saw a cage with high-voltage electricity to keep the hostages inside. Gwang Cheol's hand protector could not withstand this current. Mina called Jiabiam for help. There was a way which was a bit dangerous but worth trying. Gwang Cheol would touch the cage on the side for about 5 seconds. While the electric current gathered around in a place, Mina broke the other side of the cage and saved the hostages. They successfully broke the cage without sensing the trap. Gwang Cheol was bursting to take them out without waiting for Jiabiam, like Mina said. Because of his haste, the trap was activated, and the whole cage fell on the hostages, suppressing them to death. On the way home, he regretted about acting on impulse. Mina was angry as he didn't listen to her, so that they failed to save the victims. This caused internal conflicts between them. Jiabiam pulled over and resolved the dispute, otherwise the efforts were in vain. Arriving at the headquarters, Jiabiam told them to take a rest and report it to the senior the following day. After that, Jiabiam visited Tae-woong, who just underwent a surgery. Tae-woong was recovering well. The doctor recognized his strong will to live. Without a strong will, Tae-woong would have died. Taewong had a dream of the funeral for his sister. She was like his mother who always took good care of him. He let his work slide after her death. After her funeral, Taewong saw a member of Argos took his henchman's life, despite that Taewong was the team leader of Argos. They wanted to eliminate him because his sister sold Argos out to the police. Without needing to say much, Taewong stabbed the assassin. However, the assassin used a weapon in a strange shape to cut off Taewong's right arm. Taewong screamed in pain. He was surrounded by a group of men in masks. Even though he lost an arm, he could still fight against them. Luckily, the director arrived in time, fired his gun and saved Taewong's life. To understand more about his captain, GIBM used the bionic eyes to read Taewong's profile. Back then, Taewong's sister had informed the police about Argos. She even asked the police to arrest her brother. Thanks to this, Taewong could be safe throughout the purge of the organization. At that time, GIBM didn't clearly knew about his opponent. The hatred for Argos connected them together, and they shared a common purpose, which was to destroy Argos. Thanks to the eavesdropping device in Min Jun's pocket, they learned that Duk-gu was behind the accident of Ko. The one who shot Yong-deok was his wife. GIBM went to the lake to verify the evidences. After checking the lake owner's house, he discovered that Yong-deok was actually alive. So he decided to lure Duk-gu to come here. Duk-gu didn't understand what was going on. He couldn't believe that Chairman Yong-deok was still alive. The engineer who followed GIBM converted the wheelchair into a mobile weapon. As soon as GIBM made a sign, the poisoned arrows would fly at Duk-gu. Chairman Yong-deok even gave Duk-gu a shot. The bionic eyes stopped GIBM from leaving there. If he just left, Duk-gu would die. He had no choice left. GIBM was forced to save him, yet, Min Jun appeared after being upgraded from the last fight. Min Jun was much stronger. GIBM was flung away by just a punch of Min Jun. Despite the fierce battle was going on, Yong-deok fled away though he was covered in sores. GIBM helplessly looked at him running away. The other members of the team arrived and saw an abandoned car. Dalho saved Duk-gu and took him to the emergency laboratory. Because the wound was seriously infected, the doctor was forced to directly remove it without using anesthesia. Duk-gu screamed in pain and passed out when seeing his flesh was cut. Rugal team brought Yong-deok to their headquarters for an interrogation. The director would make him tell the truth with a kind of medicine. Each dose could keep him in full possession of his senses in 5 minutes. In return, his life expectancy would be reduced by 1 year. He asked Yong-deok to cooperate with him. As long as Yong-deok told him all about Argos, the director would give Duk-gu's life to Yong-deok. During an internal meeting, GIBM revealed the reason why Yong-deok was still alive. After the divers actually wanted Yong-deok assets, so they risked saving him and kept him from Argos. They sold Yong-deok items on the black market. Thanks to them, they could capture Yong-deok. Taewong was very angry when GIBM spared Duk-gu. He seemed not to care about revenge like he did before. It caused another internal conflict. Back to his room, he received a phone call from Yi-won. She asked him to escort her to an event the following day. During a stroll, she revealed that she would throw a party for the leaders. Duk-gu would be there. So she wanted him to protect her there. Everything would end if he made a mistake. Duk-gu woke up after a long surgery. He planned to kidnap Director Oh and lead the whole team of Rugal to the place of detention. This was an emergency situation that can affect the entire system. The entire team was sent on a rescue mission. After separating, Mina discovered that the doctor of Argos had escaped. In a minute of letting her guard down, the doctor gave her an electric shock. GIBM felt something wrong. When the bionic eyes couldn't find the location of his team member, there was no time, so he risked his life to reboot the eyes. When his body regained stability, he stormed in Duk-gu's den alone. GIBM saw Mina was on the ground with injuries, and he tried not to let his anger control him. To save Mina, he gave himself up as a hostage. Duk-gu knew GIBM was working with Yi-won. GIBM was under an anesthetic and taken somewhere. Duk-gu didn't realize that was just GIBM's plan. He held his breath before being drugged, so he easily defeated the 2 guards. Thanks to that, he had the opportunity to follow them to the secret base. On her escape, Mina was surrounded by the Myrmidons. Luckily, her teammates came to her rescue in time. With their bodies enhanced by machines, they quickly dealt with the assassins, and successfully rescued her back to headquarters. Sensing the betrayal of Yi-won, he strangled her like a toy. With a woman's senses, Yi-won could tell that Duk-gu had feelings for her. He seemed jealous when she cooperated with GIBM instead. If Duk-gu didn't like her, she would probably lose her life. Feeling embarrassed when she could read his mind, he was about to harm her, yet, a director fired a gun to stop him. He couldn't do anything harmful to her. At the meantime, the force of Argos changed their destination. They headed straight for a fair instead of going to the base as planned. The 2 guards sat up after a while of being senseless. They transformed into new people. They were more dangerous and more brutal. the Myrmidons of Argos caused a disturbance at the fair. All of them were implanted with a chip bomb in their heads. They eliminated anyone who were in their way. Giabium was in danger, when he was locked up with 2 bombs which could explode at any time. Taewong appeared in time to save him. They both quickly escaped before the bomb was detonated. The fair became a chaotic place filled with masked assassins. It wasn't easy for Rugal to handle the situation. The whole team tried their best to protect people from the assassins. The terrorists spread quickly across the country. The situation became increasingly chaotic. In compliance with Dukgu's wish, he arrested Mr. O and required him to make another pair of bionic eyes. But that was impossible because only those who were not afraid of losing their lives could survive the surgery. In addition to advanced technology, they needed an iron will to overcome all barriers. After the mission, the captain felt guilty when he personally entrusted the police with saving people, but it turned out that it was Argos's man pretending to be the victims. When he turned away, the 2 officers were shot. He felt bad when his sincerity was taken advantage of by bad guys. Giabium wondered why Taewong joined Rugal. Taewong wanted to revenge for his sister. To fulfill his duty, he needed to be completely separate from them. Taewong didn't believe it when the news said Giabium was the culprit, because he was well aware of Giabium's character. Once he trusted someone, he would never change his mind. After exchanging confidence, they had a drink together. Guangqiu went out to buy beers. 3 of them had a good night together. While their only female teammate was still in the hospital, Mina recalled when she graduated from a military academy. Mina suffered a huge loss when her father died when she was carrying out her duties at Rugal. He was an outstanding scientist who has contributed many achievements to the organization. Once, the experimental subject harmed him and ran away. That was why she worked like crazy to revenge for her family. However, she failed to investigate Argos when letting her emotion control herself. Taewong saved her life. As she was a strong girl, Mina never accepted her fate resignedly. Every day, she practiced hard to improve her combat skill for revenge. The following morning, many bodies were hung around the city with a note. Giabium was the culprit. Giabium couldn't understand what was going on. Why did they shift the blame on him though he did nothing wrong? Yi-won heard about that. She couldn't believe that her new bodyguard was confirmed to be dead. Rugal was trying hard to stop the spreading of the news, otherwise, Rugal would be exposed. A former police officer was mentioned as the culprit, caused public discontent. Head of police department harshly criticized officers like Giabium for affecting his prestige. Giabium was still so shocked for suffering a miscarriage of justice. He lost control of bionic eyes due to his negative emotions. As a result, he often had the illusion of being chased. The error was not from the system. What caused his hallucination was his painful past. Therefore, the bionic eyes asked him to delete all data related to his wife's case. Giabium couldn't live without a goal. His late wife was a great source of motivation for him to persevere in this mission to the end. After receiving the order, Taewong single-handedly raided Manchiol's den. He confidently entered the enemy's lair without the slightest hesitation. With his mechanically enhanced arm, he easily defeated them without too much efforts. Hearing that his men were taken down, Dukgu was cold-blooded. He didn't care at all about Manchiol, because he had no influence on Dukgu's plan. It was Manchiol's greed harmed himself. Returning from the meeting, the director requested the entire team to be on the lookout and keep watch Manchiol, who was in the prison. It was possible that Argos would attack his company to destroy the evidences. It would become a battlefield. There was a traitor in the police department. Therefore, the team must act in secret to capture the entire member of Argos. The next morning, after having the fingerprints, Dukgu went to Manchiol's bank for the file of documents stored in the safe. The security system required to scan the cornea to open the safe. If it wasn't Manchiol's cornea, the laser would destroy the eyes of anyone trying to open it. Dukgu didn't know who could open the safe. He had no choice but to leave. Meanwhile, Rugal team was disguising as staff to spy on Yi-won. She had a secret appointment with the director of the police department. He betrayed the police for a huge amount of money. He became a hireling of chairwoman Yi-won. Yi-won asked him to release Manchiol and his men. Rugal could eavesdrop the whole conversation thanks to a bug attached by Taewong. The director was shocked when his senior was related to these evil criminals. By all means, he would crush those who defiled the reputation of the police. The report on the factory's unusual power outage was sent to the headquarters. According to the director, perhaps it was an SOS sent to the headquarters from Mr. O, who was kidnapped by a group of bad people. By all means, they must save him. The situation was urgent. He ordered the entire team to rescue O. When entering the secret base, he saw a horrifying scene, the bodies of missing people sprawling on the floor. This was the consequence of their experiment in human bodies. Feel repulsion for the bad guys, they decided to split up to search for Mr. O. After the defective prototypes, they succeeded in creating their own army. However, it was only a test version, so it couldn't defeat Rugal team. After searching every corner and Mr. O was seen nowhere, GIBM knew had taken him to another place. Having no choice, the team had to return to the headquarters, for the time being. O would be safe because Argos wanted him to complete their clone army, so they needed to wait for another signal. The director would handle everything else. GIBM was still suffering from the effects of his eyes. Earlier, he was totally controlled by the bionic eyes, unable to distinguish between enemies and teammates. His mind was filled with anger. The bionic eyes ordered him to destroy anyone he saw. It wasn't easy for GIBM to regain his composure. He wondered how long he would be controlled by it. When he was so confused, he saw Yi-Won passing by. She was so surprised when he was still alive. Despite being the chairwoman of Argos, she had a special feeling for him. They had a company along the way. He was a Dukgu's henchman. They left the car with a GPS tracker to dodge the company. After arriving at the safe place, GIBM asked her to stay away from him if he had unusual symptoms. Yi-Won was so sad when her crush was her opponent. She wondered if they could stay together. Contrary to her expectation, he left her at the coffee shop alone. In the meantime, the key members of Argos were discussing about eliminating Dukgu. They all wanted to get rid of a pain in their neck. It was Dukgu who messed everything up. After Manchiol was released from prison, he was furious when Dukgu dared to break into his safe. Unable to control himself, he provoked Dukgu without knowing that his men were taken down. Dukgu was pointing a gun at his head. Getting freaked out by the ringleader, Manchiol knelt down and begged for his mercy. Dr.O.'s video was suddenly streamed on TV. He revealed that the government had been creating human weapons. This announcement shocked the whole country. The police department received intense criticism, so the director to urgently handle it. He wanted to shift all the blame on GIBM, if necessary. They were ready to get rid of him. More than that, Dukgu went live with a mask and shifted all the blame on GIBM to whitewash Argos. He was trying to lure GIBM to appear by every means. GIBM had no scare of Dukgu. Facing the judgment of people, he felt self-pity when he risked his life to protect them, but they disregarded him. To resolve this matter, GIBM decided to show up in public. Despite knowing that was Dukgu's trap, he was still willing to confront. He was in an empty, only a camera for the interview. While the schemer was enjoying it from afar, that was a trap for GIBM. He failed to activate his bionic eyes to communicate with his team, because Dukgu caused an interference. As GIBM had anticipated it, he still needed to buy more time for this eyes to get used to the electromagnetic wave. The first gift was served. A hearty meal was on the table. 4 muscular guys came to serve him. By this time, his bionic eyes got used to the electromagnetic wave. GIBM could act as he wished without any obstacle. He confidently fought against the lackeys. As for GIBM, they were like toys. He easily defeated them all thanks to his bionic eyes. Witness the supernatural power of the bionic eyes. Dukgu wanted GIBM to be his henchman, keeping track of GIBM's weakness. Dukgu said he knew how GIBM felt when the whole world turned their back at him. After his wife's death, the police was waiting for breaking into Rugel's headquarters. Since GIBM didn't yield, they threatened to eliminate his teammates, whether or not they were safe without him there. GIBM didn't easily fall into a snare. The bionic eyes recorded all of Dukgu's moves. After leaving that place, GIBM would show the whole world the footage, when GIBM had Dukgu by the balls. Dukgu got angry and walked towards GIBM with a gun. Without fear, GIBM began the fight. With just a slight move, he easily dodged the incoming bullet, but things were not that simple. Dukgu ordered his artificial army to overpower GIBM. GIBM lost the fight by the sheer weight of numbers. Dukgu had a grim smile. He slowly approached GIBM and pointed a gun at him. The bionic eyes couldn't save him. Before Dukgu pulled the trigger, someone snatched the gun from him. GIBM was saved by Min-jun. Dr.O helped Min-jun recall his memories. Dukgu fled into rage when he was betrayed. When Dukgu was constrained, Min-jun decided to shoot him, but no bullets in the gun. GIBM and Min-jun had to run away from the lackeys. They decided to take different way to divide them into 2 smaller groups. Min-jun bought time for GIBM to escape. He took down the artificial army alone. After handling the lackeys, he confronted Dukgu once again. However, he was no match for Dukgu. He was defeated, no strength left to fight back. Min-jun already accepted the death. Dukgu gave him a shot in his shoulder. As he was still useful, Dukgu spared him. To increase public pressure, they kidnapped all the passengers in a bus. They even planted a bomb under the bus to control everyone. After receiving intelligence, the remaining members of the team quickly went to the scene to handle the situation. Dukgu planned a gas terrorist attack to lead the public to blame the police. The head of the police department was poisoned when he became useless. No one could subdue the expansion of Argos. The only person who could stop him was GIBM. He and his teammates rescued the hostages. No need to act on the quiet. GIBM showed the whole world the process of rescue. and declared war on Argos. The number of views dramatically increased, the public was in favor of Rugal, many people shared the information they had about Argos, they were disturbed by a gang of Argos, Rugal was trustworthy for them to share their stories. After receiving the report, they each came to the pinpointed location to capture the thugs. The videos of their captures of those thugs were posted online. The thugs were taken to the nearest police station. That was a way to let people know more about how dangerous their job was. By the way, he also published a disclaimer about the rumors about him. He shared how intensely painful he was after Argos destroyed his life by taking his wife's life. He swore to destroy Argos for what he had done. One day, Yiwon called them. She asked for their help. Members of Argos were abolishing each other. That made her feel restless. In return, she would disclose the secrets of Argos. Agreeing with her proposal, the whole team decided to go to her home. They saw a mess there, so they took Yiwon to a safe place. Along the way, they heard that a boy was ready to impeach Argos of a crime. He was kidnapped by them. Despite danger, he was still determined to expose their crime. Being touched by his courage and sense of responsibility, they wouldn't let Argos to commit any crime. Dukgu were stood at bay, so he had to speed up the process of weaponizing human bodies. Dukgu shot the old doctor to threaten Dro. He was the only one who could help Dukgu realize his dream. Moreover, he kept the confidential document of Rugal, which could help him turn over. Dukgu tuned himself in at the police department, and asked for their protection from Rugal. Gibm couldn't get why he dared to tune himself in, to answer his own questions. He met up with Dukgu at night. Dukgu was excited when he showed up. It seemed that he carefully prepared for it. He was complacent when the people he was looking for were around him. Minjun and Minho, even his late wife. Speaking of his wife, Gibm lost control of his emotions and started a fight with Dukgu. Dukgu whispered to Gibm's ears that his wife was still alive. He was so stunned seeing a photo of his wife as a waitress at a bar. Gibm couldn't believe that, but Dukgu seemed to be honest. His wife was still alive somewhere. Dukgu would only tell where she was as long as he was released. After leaving the police station, Gibm followed the bionic eyes to the bar with a hope of seeing his wife again. As it was the first time he came there, the owner let him choose among the waitress. He tried to suppress his anger and slowly followed the manager. He deliberately provoked him to let his guard down. It wasn't to mislead Gibm. After that, he beat the bar owner up. Taewon also came there after hearing the news. He easily defeated the security guards to help his teammate. While strangling a man, he suddenly realized that was his friend. His friend confirmed that Gibm's wife wasn't there. Taewon warned Gibm about that and helped him calm down. Coming back to the headquarters, he used the bionic eyes to search for the records of his wife's death. Feeling something unusual, he decided to capture Dalho, who took his wife's life in person. Dalho said it was someone else who did that. A man in mask was already there when they arrived at Gibm's home. That was the real culprit. Furthermore, he ordered them to destroy Gibm's eyes. Yet, they didn't know who he was, neither did his henchmen. At night, Gibm went to see Dukgu again. He was not the first person to come to Gibm's house. Also, he showed Gibm the video of them torturing his wife. Reaching the peak of anger, he broke the grid. He grabbed Dukgu by his collar. Gibm just wanted to know where his wife was. Dukgu wouldn't let him know easily, unless Gibm let him go. Aside from him, Mina also discovered something unusual in the case of his wife. She asked a police in charge for more. He was the first person to discover the crime scene. No trace of destruction of the door. That means the victim opened the door as it may be her acquaintance. That was why she suspected he was the real culprit. The officer reported about her to the director of Rugal. It was the director who ordered him to end the life of his close friend's wife. Their purpose was to protect him from Argos, so that they faked his wife's death, and kept her in a safe place. After waking up, she was very miserable when her husband was thought to be the culprit. Taking advantage of the director's negligence, she ran away and they couldn't find her yet. Dukgu surprised him when he knew where she was. Choi Guncheol sent some men to silence Dukgu, but all of them were no match for Dukgu. He easily defeated them and leisurely used the police department's office. The following day, the paddy wagon was blocked by the robbers. It was Gibm who helped Dukgu escape. He released Dukgu to get more information about his wife. Gibm was ambushed by a group of mercenaries to buy more time for Dukgu to run. Luckily, Taewon came in time to help him out. Gibm followed Dukgu to a desert building. He searched for every corner in the building to look for his wife. Dukgu took her earlier and lured Gibm to the rooftop for handling him easier. Gibm couldn't believe in his eyes. He finally saw his wife. They hugged each other and cried. Dukgu's call interrupted their sweet moment. There were snipers everywhere around the rooftop aiming at her head. In order to save her, he must obey Dukgu. Gibm's teammates came there for them. They took down all the snipers and saved them from danger. When his force was defeated, Dukgu fled away in his car. Before he was on the run, he had manipulated Gibm's wife. he said her silence put GIBM in jail, so she thought she caused him unhappiness. If he knew this, he wouldn't love her anymore. To save his life, she decided to take her own life. Once again, he witnessed his wife's death. A great pang gripped his heart. As a result, he lost control of himself. And he was frantic when he knew that Choi was behind his tragedy, so he completely lost his trust in Choi. Choi wanted GIBM to be the host of the Bionic Eyes. For this reason, he faked his wife's death. GIBM pointed a gun at Choi. He wondered why Choi could do that to him. Choi said he was the most suitable host for the Bionic Eyes. Losing all his usual composure, he still pointed the gun at his boss. Taewoong saved Choi from being shot, and then he gave GIBM a lesson to control his anger. At the same time, the remaining members led Choi to a safe place. Only GIBM and Taewoong left there. With his strength, the captain was able to control GIBM. Even though he saw his teammate was in agony for being fooled by his enemy, he couldn't let GIBM go, and as a captain, he had to protect the organization. GIBM finally pulled himself together when Choi left. He broke down in the very place he once considered home. All members sympathized with him. Choi was wrong when he destroyed GIBM's life. This was unacceptable no matter how good his purpose was. He talked about Mina's father. When he was alive, he worked with the police to found Rugal. Because of his carelessness, he lost his life by the experimental subject, and Choi was so sorry about that. Experimenting on the human body had a lot of risks. Even a small error could turn the experimental subject into a weapon. Thus, he needed the one with the highest compatibility with the weapons implanted in his body. It was none other than GIBM, an elite police officer. However, GIBM was like a soulless body. He vented this grudge on Dukgu's lackey. Every single punch of him was full of pent-up energy. After the target was destroyed, he continued to search for more information about his wife while staying next to the director. Although this was a confidential file of the police department, he could still heard their talk in the hospital thanks to the Bionic Eyes. It was so shocked when Choi couldn't give her a safe place, and he lost faith in this person, visiting to the room where his wife used to live. He saw the photo of them that she put on the nightstand. The hostess said she cried and waited for someone every day. She had taken pain for a long time. GIBM was so sorry for what she had been through. He decided to take a revenge. Thanks to the power of the Bionic Eyes, he learned that both Choi and Dukgu were related to F-110H. His teammates were spying on him to make sure he wouldn't risk his life to do something. Meanwhile, Dukgu demanded Dro to upgrade his body. This made him very surprised, because transplant operation was a very dangerous. Normal people would die if they couldn't endure it, but he didn't care. He craved power so much that he lost his reason. Besides from transforming his body, he even kidnapped Yi-won. Taewoong was one step late, so he could only see him on the run in anger. The following morning, Choi told Young that GIBM was rebellious. He was so worried because it was him who captured GIBM's wife. It was possible that GIBM would find him to revenge. However, GIBM was finding for the confidential document at the headquarters of Rugal. After successfully getting the F-100H, he couldn't wait any longer and found a shocking news. Dukgu was actually the first experimental subject of the government. GIBM was like a tool to clear the trash. There was no justice for him. It was Choi who created such a terrible monster as Dukgu, so he waited for Choi to come. No respect for his boss, he directly beat Choi without any hesitation. Because of him, his life changed. Even though the other teammates tried to stop him, he was still able to gain the upper hand thanks to his strength. The situation changed when the captain came. Choi could escape and GIBM had a fight with Taewoong. They each had different thoughts and goals. No matter it was right or wrong, they were no longer in the same boat. On the way back home, GIBM showed up for Yang. That gave him a tremble. Yang was afraid of his close friend's revenge. Facing GIBM's question, he could only say sorry. He had nothing more to say. GIBM wondered if Yang was really his friend. Despite Yang's excuse, GIBM didn't care about the one who indirectly caused his wife's death. Lifting Yang from the ground with just one arm, GIBM was about to take Yang's life. Yet, Mina interrupted. She fired the gun to end the meaningless fight. She herself was also a victim of Choi's plan. Her father lost his wife when performing a secret experiment. His death was a huge loss for her. Nevertheless, she didn't have to destroy Rugal, because their enemy was Dukgu. After Mina cried her hair out, he was troubled in spirit. Only the Bionic Eyes were trying to manipulate him, to make him lose control of himself. GIBM stayed away to keep her safe. The Bionic Eyes wanted him to end the lives of anyone passing by. He headed out for a corner to control the monster inside him. It seemed that he went crazy and lose control. Suddenly, he remembered what the doctor said. The chip that controlled the Bionic Eyes was in his pape. With just a moderate, he could escape from the domination. The Bionic Eyes knew what he was going to do, so it didn't let him destroy the chip. GIBM completely lost control of his body. After that, he asked Taewoong for a talk. As soon as Taewoong arrived, GIBM attacked him. They used all their strength to destroy their opponent. Gibm let Taewon attack on the chip on his pape. That was how he got himself out of the domination. He risked his life to protect their safety. Taewon was surprised at Gibm's will. He didn't mean to end Gibm's life, so he tried every way to save him. Gibm was transferred to the operation room of Rugal with a recovery rate of less than 10%. To save his life, the doctors implanted a new chip. This also came with risks. It was possible that he would lose all his memory after waking up. Just as doctors predicted, Gibm woke up like a child. He could not remember what he had done. The first person he met was Taewon. With all his efforts, he promised to help Gibm regain his memories. They encountered Choi when having a tour around the building. Choi was amazed when Gibm couldn't realize him. He was like a time bomb that could explode at any time. Eventually, Choi suspended Rugal's operation. At the same time, he put Taewon and Gibm in temporary detention. After upgrading his body, Duk-gu got rid of his rivals, who were in his way. Yi-won was too scared to speak. His strength was truly too terrifying. No one was strong enough to stop him. Yi-won was locked up in the secret basement. Gibm remembered everything in jail. Taewon was happy when Gibm regained his memories. Just a moment later, they faced a group of artificial assassins sent by Choi. He wanted to get rid of them both. However, they were no match for this pair of friends. Outside, their teammates were planning to help them out. Thanks to their teamwork, they could escape from the police station. The director of the police department grew cross when they had a jailbreak. He blamed Choi for all of that. The entire Rugal team was wanted nationwide. Taewon needed to see Choi for confirming one thing. He wanted to know if his sister was also one of his victims. Even though he was wanted, he still asked Choi for a talk. Taewon asked Choi if he was the one who ordered to cut off his arm. Choi said it was for continuing Rugal. Even his sister was part of his plan. Taewon was in a high dudgeon when knowing the truth about his sister's death. Choi sacrificed Taewon's sister to manipulate him, couldn't control his emotion. Taewon knocked him unconscious. The men in masks stopped him from taking Choi's life. These guys were the human weapons created by Choi. Taewon stood still despite being injured. He focused on observing every move of his opponent, taking advantage of the moment when they let their guard down. He took down the assassins. He was the only one left. In spite of that, Taewon couldn't end his boss's life. Finally, he left Choi there. A sound of a fire. Choi shot himself. Gibm came to the location shared by Yi-won, who was asking for help. Dro was also captured there. While Gibm was trying to help them out, Duk-gu came to the hideout of Rugal. It was understandable when he could know where it was. Gwang-cheol confronted Duk-gu, but he couldn't fight against the villain. He was freaked out by Duk-gu's great power. The match was over. He left with spoils. Gwang-cheol was taken to the secret lab. They gave him a shot of boosting the genes, although he defeated the doctor. His body was gradually losing control. Gibm encountered Gwang-cheol while taking Yi-won out. He was surprised when Gwang-cheol lost control of himself. He couldn't distinguish between friends and enemies, so he attacked anyone in front of him. Gibm used violence to overpower Gwang-cheol, though he didn't want to. After remembering the instructions to get back in control, Gibm helped Gwang-cheol regain his senses. Outside of the building, when Mina found Dro, they were ambushed by a group of assassins. She was stabbed and injured. Taewon parried a stab for her and took everyone down. He immediately took his teammates to the hospital for a treatment. Yi-won was captured by Duk-gu. He wanted to use her as a key to access the data of politicians' slush funds. More than supernatural strength, he wanted to gain great political power. After locking up Yi-won, he asked Gibm for the last fight. To increase the chance of victory, he injected a serum that stimulated his strength to a new level. The location was Rugal's headquarters, the beginning of everything. Gibm was up to the wall seeing his enemy for life. Without much words, they began to fight. Thanks to the serum, Duk-gu seemed to overwhelm Gibm. He easily threw him away without much efforts. Time after time, he was knocked to the floor. With his iron will and determination not to give up, he kept standing up despite his injuries. When Duk-gu didn't notice, Gibm picked up an iron pen. The bionic eyes helped him analyze Duk-gu's strives and found a chance to end him. After many years of waiting, Gibm could finally pay off old scores. After the fight, Yang and his team raided the hideout of Argos. Yi-won was at her own home. She didn't expect Gibm to find her. Although she did not indirectly cause misfortune for his life, she was the chairwoman of Argos, who once tried to take Yong-deok's life. He had to arrest her and erased everything related to the largest criminal organization in the country. Yi-won followed the police after her dynasty was collapsed. This was the end of everything. Gibm was declared innocent. After Rugal was dissolved, each of them took their own way. Taewon tuned himself in for what he had done. Mina became a police officer as she wished for. Gwang-cheol started up his business. A few years later, they each were living a new life. Though they weren't in regular communication, they still considered the team their family. The end. Thanks for watching. Goodbye and see you next time.